The story of Winona Lake begins in the 19th century on the shores of what was known as Eagle Lake. The area was wooded and swampy with remnants of Native American settlements and numerous artesian springs, which provided cool, clear water. Remains of the springs can still be seen today. It was the abundance of these natural springs that attracted three brothers, Fred, Edward, and Christian Byer, who became the area's first developers. They owned a wholesale creamery, and after they purchased the lakeshore property, the brothers built several spring houses, using the cool water as natural refrigeration. In 1890, the Byer brothers opened their lakeshore property to the public, making it a place of retreat and outdoor recreation, and it would serve this purpose for many decades to come. The Byer brothers named the property Spring Fountain Park, and in addition to the recreation offered by the lake, visitors could tour flower gardens, utilize courts for roque and tennis, watch horse races, and walk among the fish ponds. Perhaps the two greatest attractions were the cyclorama, a round building displaying panoramic artwork, and the switchback railway, an early form of roller coaster. But Spring Fountain Park was more than merely a primitive amusement park. The Byers also made their property a Chautauqua site. The Midwest had dozens of Chautauqua sites which offered a summertime schedule of educational venues with lectures and programs of study, as well as cultural programs such as musical and theatrical performances. All this was modeled after the famous programs created on the shores of Lake Chautauqua in western New York, after which the Midwestern sites were named. The Chautauqua programming became the heart of Spring Fountain Park and continued into the next phase of our history, which the park would take on a more explicitly religious flair. The Byer brothers sold the property on the shores of Eagle Lake to the newly formed Winona Assembly and Summer School in 1894. The sale was arranged by Presbyterian leader Solomon Dickey, who continued the Chautauqua programs, but also hoped to remake the grounds into a religious center with a week set aside each summer for Bible conferences. The Bible conference movement, which was beginning to gain momentum in America, revolved around popular evangelical personalities whose revival sermons and sentimental songs stirred the hearts of the crowds in attendance. Dickey, whose castle-inspired home still stands by the lake, was responsible for changing the name to Winona Lake. He would become the patriarch of the town and facilitated what some have called the Golden Age of Winona. This era produced a host of buildings such as the Grand Westminster Hotel, and sometimes drew as many as 250,000 people in a single summer. The grounds hosted a litany of famous entertainers and cultural icons, from humorist Will Rogers to urban reformer Jane Addams. In addition, numerous summer schools were established. This era also benefited from the financial support of several wealthy individuals, among them John D. Rockefeller, H.J. Heinz, and John M. Studebaker, whose funds even helped to build railroads to connect Winona Lake with other towns in northeast Indiana. Winona Lake was now on the map. It was a place idealized for its natural beauty, a playground for American evangelicals, and Park Avenue took on the feel of a boardwalk with stores, rental shops, and a boathouse. In the early decades of the 20th century, the religious culture fostered at Winona Lake represented the popular evangelicalism of the day. Sabbath-keeping and modesty was expected, and prohibition was in full swing. Bible conference drew more than large audiences, however. It also attracted the attention of Billy Sunday, the famous evangelist. Born in Iowa in 1862, Sunday had humble beginnings. Yet, he went on to play Major League Baseball and was known for his tremendous speed. An unexpected change of direction took place when Sunday found religion, gave up his baseball career, and started preaching the revival circuit. He became famous for his lengthy crusades, large tabernacles, and condemnations of alcohol and other vices. The Sundays moved to Winona Lake in 1911 and built a bungalow on a bluff overlooking the lake. They became active members in the town. In 1921, a tabernacle was built on the old Chautauqua grounds and was eventually named for the famous evangelist. Although many historic buildings have not survived, the Sunday home, a pristine example of the arts and crafts movement, has been preserved as a museum since Helen Sunday's death in 1957. Evangelistic crusaders always had a song leader who often became as popular as the evangelist. For Billy Sunday, this role was filled by Homer Rodeheaver, who also moved to Winona Lake. Living on a lakeshore property he named Rainbow Point, Rodeheaver remained a bachelor his entire life. He had a winsome personality and joined in the fun of water activities. He was also a pioneer in recording sacred music and ran a music publishing company from the Westminster Hotel. Toward mid-century, religious organizations held their conferences here. Preachers, including Billy Graham, graced the tabernacle stage, and other evangelistic organizations, such as Youth for Christ, remained connected with Winona Lake. By the 1960s, however, the Bible Conference movement, which had given Winona Lake its identity for so many years, was waning and aging buildings were becoming dilapidated. In 1968, Grace College and Seminary assumed ownership of the lakeside property, taking responsibility for the aging buildings as well as significant financial liabilities. By the 1980s, Winona Lake was a shadow of its former glory, and in 1992, the iconic Billy Sunday Tabernacle was torn down. The town would not remain this way, however. Interest in Winona Lake's history was kept alive by local residents who started a historical society, and in the 1990s, with help from local investors such as Dane and Mary Louise Miller, a new venture dedicated to breathing new life into Winona Lake took shape. The village at Winona, which we enjoy today, was a result. The Winona History Center is proud to illustrate the heritage of Winona Lake as we glimpse the past and look to the future. Our mission is to foster educational and scholarly interest in Winona's heritage through the preservation and exhibition of historical collections and by inspiring a new generation to discover the treasures of American history. Thank you for visiting us today.